Taylor Lou, welcome to the Thought Room.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to be here because technically the Thought Room today is in your beautiful home. This is gorgeous.
Thank you.
This view is epic.
Thank you.
And I always like to start off the show with talking about how we met. So you and I met at an event, I don't know when that, maybe February.
Could have been 2 years ago. Could have been 2 months ago.
What
it's
is
hard to
time?
say.
But I think it was the event that Charles and Brandolyn were holding, and that was that giant feast, and it was just like such a gorgeous night. They've both since been on this show also as guests.
I saw that.
Which were epic episodes. So if anyone listening hasn't heard those, they should go back and listen. But yeah, there were so many fantastic people there that night, and you were one of them, and you looked fabulous in this green dress. And I was just so taken by your energy and your playfulness and your sense of humor. And I was like, I wonder what her deal is. Like, what does she do in the world to sprinkle that magic? And then I found out you were a coach, and I was like, of course she is. So, but coach is such a simplistic term. You know, I think maybe you relate to this, but we use it because people understand what it means.
Yeah.
But truly, in my mind, the word coach or coaching does not encompass the full multidimensionality of what we do.
Absolutely.
So I would love for you to describe to us kind of how you see your work at this current juncture. Because I know we just, before we hit record, we were talking about how much it's changed. So for you, what's alive in you, and how would you describe your work?
Yeah, this is such a relevant question because I feel like in the last year, even though I've been coaching for about 4 years now, in the last year, I've really gotten massive clarity around what I'm calling my it factor. Like, what is it that I am really born to be doing, to be creating, to be talking about? And for me, it's all around image consulting, which is actually something that I was certified in. I think it was 6 years ago. I got my certification in image consulting.
Okay.
And then I've also always been really passionate about personal branding. And I've been a business mentor over the last 4 years in the coaching space. And in the last year or so, I've really gone deeper into how do I help people to define their it factor so that they have more clarity on the way that they want to position themselves online, how they want to express their truth and their voice, and how do they use this it factor to grow a business, an online business with more authenticity. And so really by discovering and going deeper into my own it factor, like in this sea of coaches, what is it that I am really amazing at? Like, what is my zone of genius within this industry?
And what is it?
It's this it factor piece. It's helping people to actually systematically break down authenticity. Because I think authenticity is a word that is thrown around a lot in the personal development, spiritual, coaching community. And my mind works in a very masculine, structure-oriented kind of way. And I just started asking myself deeper questions around, okay, what does my core authentic truth and expression look like in a way that's not just the flavor of the day? Because I think a lot of people in the personal development space, we're constantly having breakthroughs around like, this is who I am. No, actually, this is who I am. And there's just so much that there's rapid growth and transformation that's constantly happening. And what I became really interested in is, okay, at the bottom of that, what are those consistent truths in regards to authenticity that we've carried with us throughout our entire life? And so instead of seeking what is the new me, what is the next level version of me, what is my best self, highest self, which all of those I believe are incredibly powerful tools, I became more interested in who is the me that I've always been, and what is the kind of soul blueprint that I was born to just embrace. And I've broken this down into a methodology that people can follow and people can go on this journey of self-discovery, and then to be able to better articulate both what they as an individual, kind of the it factor of them as an individual, and also their secret sauce in business within their industry. So that's kind of what I've been working on the past year, and it has been super rewarding.
I love all this. Thank you so much for sharing. This is so interesting to me personally, and will be for so many people. I want to go back to you talking about being an image consultant, because some people listening might be like, I don't even know. Like, what is that? Like, what does that person do? Because it's just not a world that they're necessarily in. So I'd love to hear about image consulting and some of the nuance of actually doing that work. And then I have another question for you about integrity after that, and authenticity and what that really looks like.
Yeah, so image consulting is actually a pretty broad term as well. For some people, they go deep into the personal styling aspect of image consulting. There's also a lot of...
Like how you look, like physically present, what clothes are you wearing.
How you dress yourself, how you accessorize. And other people talk more about kind of the public perception of you in person, how you're carrying yourself, the energy that you're emanating. And then for me, I've kind of seen it more as a combination of how you're outwardly presenting yourself, but by first doing that deep journey of self-discovery and like what is my deepest level of authenticity, and then how do I infuse that into my environment, into how I style myself, the way that I dress, and also how do I infuse this into every aspect of my personal brand, and for business owners into my business. So everything just kind of oozes you. And it's funny because this is something else I talk a lot is really discovering your unconscious competence. What are those things that you're just naturally really amazing at? And how do you quantify those things so that that's what you're teaching in your coaching business, in your business, versus always feeling like you need to learn something new and master something new. So part of the it factor piece, I realized I naturally do this. Like my whole life is on brand and has been for years. And I've always had a pretty high level of self-awareness and continue to develop that. And so now that's essentially what I'm helping people to do through image consulting. Going back to your question, is helping people develop a really high sense of self-awareness and be able to articulate their authenticity, and then understand how to translate that into style, into color palettes, into how they decorate their home, and the energy and the essence that they're cultivating when they meet someone, which is such a compliment for you to introduce me today, talking about that there was something in my essence that attracted you to me. And that's something that I spend a lot of time cultivating, is like, how do I make sure that this essence is so me? Because authenticity is magnetic. And that's a reflection that I often get. And I think it's because I've done a lot of work on figuring out like, what is my essence, and how do I play more to my strengths in social settings, in business, with my personal brand, all of it, instead of trying to be someone I'm not, or feeling like I'm like dimming my light for whatever reason. This unapologetic amplification of your essence.
Wow. Yeah. And exactly as you said, that takes such deep self-awareness. So the question that comes to mind for me, and I'm sure this is all encompassed in your it factor, which we'll talk about at the end of the show. So anyone who wants to purchase that offering can do that. But could you give a small tool or a small piece of guidance for someone who's like, okay, I want to discover what my gifts are that I'm maybe not conscious of, that I've been kind of doing my whole life, and they're easy for me and I love them. How can we bring those, below the line of our awareness up above the surface?
Yeah. So there's 3 parts to my methodology, 3 specific things that we focus on. One is uncovering your most natural essence. So when you're not trying to put on a show, when you're not trying to be someone else, when you're just really relaxed and just feel so yourself, what are some words that really define you? And a great tool, I have an identity mapping process that I have adapted from Eben Pagan and Annie Lala. They have a workshop called Reinvent, which is amazing, and was kind of the inspiration for the identity mapping process that I use. And in that, what we do is we go through the different chapters of your life and think about the different characters that you've played, the different people that you've been throughout your lifetime. And what I ask people to do is really think about, okay, in these major chapters, what did you learn about your authentic essence? What is one word that sticks out about, let's say, between the ages of 9 and 12 or 9 and 14? Looking at that period of your life, like what shines through of when you were yourself, what is one word to describe that essence? And so through that process, you end up with 5 core essence words. And you then can apply that in so many different ways. Vibrant is one of my essence words. And that one came from when I was between 8 years old and 12 years old. And I was just so out there. I mean, I went to the fabric store and to get these beautiful fabrics and wrap them around myself, and just like, that's what I would wear. And I was very outspoken, super expressed, very colorful, vibrant. And I also have bright red hair, which helps with the vibrancy just naturally. And so now I always think about, like, my core essence is so vibrant. And so even with the things that I wear, it's colorful, it's funky. I love wearing things that help me to stand out and be even more vibrant. Like the green dress I was wearing when we met.
Yes.
The green silk dress.
I still remember it. It was effective.
It's on brand. Okay, so that's the first part of the process. The second part of the process is understanding your convicted message. And what that means is, what has life really groomed you to take a stand about? And I hope people distill that down to like 1 or 2 sentences of like, what are you here to really say and be on your soapbox about and really talk about with conviction. And then the third part of the process is uncovering your embodied medicine, which is like, they're all pretty important, but this is a really important piece because it's helping you to understand what is your natural and effortless impact on others. And what's so interesting about this is, even from a young age, most likely you've had a specific impact on other people, even when you're not trying. And to map the trends of that. And what does that tell you about who you are today? What does that tell you about your most authentic core? That is so fascinating to me. It feels like we're scientists and we're detectives rather, and we're going back and we're looking for the clues. And so a great kind of quick tool for listeners around that piece is to simply ask, 10 people who are fairly close to you, like, how have I impacted you in a way, big or small? And first of all, it feels great to get those reflections from other people. And you'd be surprised how much insight you get around this unconscious competence, around like, what is it? How do I positively affect people just by being me? And that is what feels so important to me, because through my coaching journey, I've served hundreds of women. And so often there's this unworthiness wound and like feeling like they need to constantly be learning new things, getting more certifications, having a new mentor, taking more courses. And then finally one day they'll feel like they have something important enough to share and to be paid well for. And I think this process really helps people to see how valuable their inherent essence, message, and medicine is.
I love that. And I often think about this myself. I think it's really important to ground in, like, we're never complete, right? So you and I have mentors, right? We have people, it's like this tiered system. So there's no matter what level you are at, whoever you are that's listening, there are people that are looking up to you.
Totally.
There are things that you have to offer them. And there will be people that can and that you should look to hold yourself accountable to your continual journey of growth always. That doesn't end. It just, our position changes as we climb. So thank you so much for bringing that piece. I think it really needs to be said. We need everyone's medicine. All hands on deck.
Yeah. And I truly believe that everyone has something valuable to share. And that the more that we can all claim that unapologetically, the more we can all share and become this incredible ecosystem. And something that's really on my heart is creating this ecosystem of women in business. Like that's very important to me. My mom was an entrepreneur and then sold her business when she was really young and then started a nonprofit. And that's been like her main thing that she's done. But to have the example so young of seeing a woman succeed in business was such incredible programming for me. And I realized the value of that more and more as I get older. And I'm so grateful for that example and for that programming, because so many people have the reverse of you have to do life in this way and do career in this way in order to reach some level of success. And entrepreneurship is risky. It's, you might fail, et cetera, et cetera. And so I feel, it's not a duty. I feel inspired to share with women specifically, hey, this is possible for you. You can do this.
What do you think the most poignant thing about watching your mom as you were young, watching her run this business? Like, what was the story that you got then? If it wasn't this is how life has to be and you have to be a homemaker. I mean, maybe we want to too. That's great. But like there was a different story that was coming through. What if you could titrate it down to just like a couple lines? What was the most important thing you learned from that?
Great question. I think it sounds cheesy, but really anything is possible. Like my parents really made me feel like I could do and be anything that I wanted to do and be. And that was such a gift. Like I would go to them and be like, I want to play softball now. No, I want to play tennis. No, I want to do this. No, I want to do this. And they're always on board. They're like, great, how can we support you? You're going to be the best.
Yeah.
And I am just incredibly grateful for their belief. And it gave me a lot of boldness and this like fearlessness with life of like, I can go out and try something and I can fail at something.
Yes.
And I'm still going to be good. And and also seeing my mom, my parents always tell the story of her like firing someone while she's breastfeeding me. I think is so crazy.
Yeah.
And she was a totally present mom, incredible mom. and also had this business, then sold the business, then threw herself into running a nonprofit. And I think in many ways, she kind of had it all. And of course, she's not perfect, and our family is not perfect. We have a lot of our own issues. And at the same time, like seeing that modeled of you can have it all and anything is possible is like so valuable. So valuable.
I want to loop back to authenticity. And you said yourself, it's thrown around so much, and it's true. So being deep in this niche of this work around authenticity, can you describe the energetic nuance between what appears authentic and what doesn't? Like in your mind, when you see a social media story and something is cringy because it's not authentic, what does that look like? And then let's flip the coin and talk about what the other side is.
Ooh, this is a very nuanced question. I feel like we could go a lot of different directions. So one thing that I want to say is through my work and my mission, in no way do I ever want people to feel like I'm the authenticity judge, or even that you can get to a place where you're 100% authentic all the time. Right. Like that is just not true. Like it's, for me, it's more the pursuit of a deeper understanding of self. That's the important piece. Now, to answer your question, when I sense the difference between the two is when I go to a gathering or I see something on Instagram and I get this sense of like posturing, right? It feels like people are just talking to be witnessed talking, and it doesn't feel, you feel it in your body of like there's something off, and sometimes you can't really put your finger on it, but it's like the body check for me is like I just get this deep sense, and I actually get this sense from people that like they're lying, and that may or may not be true, but it's just the way it feels in my body of like they're lying. And I get this in coaching too, when I'm coaching my clients and they're saying things that they maybe just think sound good, or there's kind of like trying to convince themselves of something.
Yes.
I get this sense in my body like they're lying.
And do you reflect that back?
I do, in a nicer way.
Yes.
Yeah. I just ask them more questions like, where is that idea coming from? Or how does that align with kind of your higher vision for your life?
How does it feel in your body when you say that?
Yes.
What are you experiencing?
Yeah, totally. But it's this very clear sense of they're lying. And my partner and I both, I think, have a deep commitment to integrity, personal truth, and just kind of being very grounded humans. And again, we're definitely not perfect in this, but we do have we place a high value on being people who are just very grounded, down to earth, and of earth. And just really understanding our opportunity to be humans and be messy and be vulnerable. And so I think that's just something that comes up a lot for us, is like, what does that look like for us? And then your question of like, how do you sense the difference between the two when you're around other people is something we talk about a lot too.
Amazing. I echo all of those sentiments for sure. And again, why I felt so much alignment with you, because just hearing you speak at dinner, I was like, okay, yes, this is the vibe. Can't tell you exactly why. It's just a feeling.
Yeah.
And to trust that, like to empower ourselves to trust that. That's the green light. I think that's the universe winking at you to connect with someone. And I found this too recently in my new partnership is there's that adjustment period when you're entering a new relationship and you're like, okay, what's me now? What's his now? Like, what do we do together? And watching my friendships sort of shift a lot, because I'm now prioritizing, like, I really enjoy spending time with this person. Like, we have a great time. We laugh a lot.
Yeah.
We have deep talks. It's incredible. And so where in my life was I kind of like parsing out this energy just to maybe not feel alone? And like, which of these friendships are really like symbiotic? They charge me up. We both leave feeling like incredible, and we're supported, and we can laugh, and we can cry, and we can fart, and we can like just, be. And then which of these was I kind of holding on to in like a performative way for some reason or another, and just like being real with ourselves, with myself, in the checks and balances of those, because we have one life to live in this body, at least, that we know for sure. So to make it, make the juice worth the squeeze, and like really be intentional about where we're putting our energy. And this kind of segues into what I want to talk to you next about, is lifestyle design. And if you could just describe a little bit about like, what does that term even mean for someone who's never heard it? And how have you been able to design your lifestyle to kind of spend more time in that juicy space of ultimate you-ness?
Yeah, so I like to think of lifestyle design as you viewing and treating your life as your greatest masterpiece. Like, this is your work of art. And in order to create a beautiful piece of art, you have to spend time with it. You have to spend many, many hours laying it out and deciding which colors to choose and paintbrushes to use. And it really takes this level of mastery and intention to bring this masterpiece to life. And so I am very obsessed with life optimization. I get so jazzed about just sitting down and getting to like work on my life like I do my business. And
what does that look like?
So many different things. An example would be Jared and I went to Park City right before the new year. And we sat down and we looked at every different piece of our life, the major pieces of our life. And we kind of took stock of like, how happy are we in this area of our life? And what can we do to improve it? What can we do to improve our relationship, and creating action steps within that, and setting goals and all of that. I love structure in that way.
And the accountability of making a plan together.
Totally.
So
and
you
really
had
building our life together.
Exactly. So you had like one section that was probably like, I'm envisioning anyway, and you can insert yourself here, but I'm just thinking for people listening. So it was probably like financial aspects, like the you two in relationship, and maybe future and like family planning, and maybe like home and business.
Yep. All of it. And we actually made a pre-kids bucket list. We want to start having kids end of 2022. So we made a pre-kids bucket list that has like everything we want to do.
What are a couple things on that list?
One thing is we want to do the Inca Trail. We want to go to Bali. We want to go to New Zealand and take a sprinter van around New Zealand, which we'll probably do for our honeymoon. And we also want to have these kind of monthly hobbies that we've been doing, which we can totally do with kids too. But it was more like, what's going to get us even more connected with each other?
What are you doing right now?
Right now, we are looking everywhere for tennis courts that are open to the public to start playing regular tennis together. But we went through a phase of making soups together, and we've really been dialing in kind of wealth building too, and having that be like a hobby that we connect on, whether it's he's very into investing in Bitcoin, crypto right now. And he has been for years. He's like so obsessed. I'm more interested in real estate. So anyways, we just really take our lives seriously, and with the deep understanding of like, we get to create what we want. And a good example of this is within our community. We moved here to Austin from Atlanta 3+ years ago. And at the time, I was definitely feeling like a lack of authenticity in my relationships, kind of what you were speaking to earlier. And I just had this sense of like, will I ever find my people where I really feel safe to be fully expressed, fully myself, where I feel really met, where I feel like they inspire me to grow. And I was feeling really discouraged about it. And moving to Austin, Jared and I really committed to, okay, it's time to dial this in. It's time to really take the necessary action steps in order to find our people. Because just hoping it comes our way might work, probably won't. And so we really made an effort to go places where we felt like people with similar values would go, and put the time and effort into cultivating relationships. And relationships take work. And we ended up finding the most incredible community of people who are just everything that I could have imagined. And it feels like a combination of like a mastermind and also like a village for raising our children together, and fun, so much fun and play. We go on amazing trips together, and we really are just all in, committed to each other as if the same level that we're committed to our partnerships.
Wow.
And going back to lifestyle design, like we had to choose that to create that and get really serious about like, this is a priority in our life right now.
Right.
And this is going to take priority over some other things, because it's really hard to have every aspect of your life be a priority at all times.
Right.
For those of you listening, if you've ever tried to do this, you know it is quite impossible.
Right. Wow. I love everything you're saying about like relationships take work. And I'm thinking about how flippantly it's like, well, I manifested that, you know, like that gets thrown around. Well, you did, but let's acknowledge too, like, what does that really mean? When we manifest something, it's like, we're choosing it. We're focusing our attention on it, and we're opening up our minds and our emotional embodiment to the fact that it's not only a possibility, but we delightfully expect it. That's what manifestation, I believe, is. And then, you know, through empowered action, which was you and Jared, like going to these places and showing up and like being willing to meet whoever you met with that equal energy of like, yeah. We're here for community. That's really powerful as an invitation.
Oh my gosh, I love that you brought this up, because the empowered action to match with manifestation is so important. And I don't always align or resonate with a lot of the messaging around manifestation being this like quick and easy process. You just call it in and then it's there, and then it's there forever. And for me, that's not even nearly as rewarding as claiming like, yes, manifestation through focused intention and aligning your energy with what it is that you're calling in. So that's part of it. But then also like, hell yeah, I then did the work to fully cement that into my reality. This house is an amazing example of this.
Okay.
Quick story time. I was actually I was facilitating a Quantum Leap retreat, which are my private retreats, in September of last year. And it was Friday night, and I was sleeping over at this venue that I was hosting the retreat. And I just got this tug to get on Zillow at 1 a.m. on Friday night.
Wow.
And I was like arguing with Source. I was like, no, I'm tired. Like, please don't make me go on my computer right now. And I just heard like, get on your computer. So I got on the computer and I opened up Zillow, and we'd been sort of looking for a house, but the timeline was much farther out. We were like, we'll buy at the end of this year. Thank God we didn't.
Yeah, things are exploding.
Yeah, the housing market in Austin's crazy. But so I open up Zillow and this house pops up and I'm like, oh my God, like this is my house. And going back to our original conversation at the start of today, it just felt like me. Like it was on brand. Like this house is me. This is my essence.
Yeah.
And so then the next day we call our realtor and he's like, oh, I happen to be in the area, which he's never out here. He was like, I happen to be in the area. Why don't we go look at the house? Went to look at the house. There were 6 other offers on the house.
Wow.
Within a day. And it had only been on the market like 2 days. And we submitted like our best and highest offer. And then we got the house.
Wow.
But then, we had to do everything we needed to do to make sure that everything went through.
Right.
And that's the action piece, right? Like we manifested this in, and then we worked as a team to put forth the action to make it happen. And then at the end, there's this combination of like feeling so grateful for my intuition and grateful that this like showed up for us and this opportunity was available for us. And then also like, hell yeah, we did that. Like we went after it and we made it happen. It could have been so easy to say, this is not the right time. This is stressful. We're not quite ready, whatever. And instead we're like, nope, we're doing this and went after it.
Yes. And it's so helpful too to have a partner who's on the same page and who supports you. And I'm feeling like this is becoming a theme of this episode in particular, is like community and support. And I'm wondering if there was, it sounds like now you're very well supported on a lot of fronts.
Yes.
But I'm wondering if there was a time in your life where you weren't supported very well. And like maybe you can tell us a story or take us back to a time where it was challenging, so that if anyone listening is going through a time like that, they know what can be on the other side.
Totally. I mean, I would say that finding the right community for me has felt impossible until the past 3 years. And I think that's why I'm so interested in authenticity, because I can track over the period of my life the phases where I was completely out of integrity with my authenticity. And the community that I would attract when I was in that state were just not people who really saw me. And it's not that they were bad people. It's just that we didn't really have anything in common. Because I was pretending to be someone that I wasn't.
Right.
And so an example would be in college, I was very focused on being popular. I was very focused on having lots of friends. Everyone like knew who I was on campus as someone of a small school. And then I kind of fed off of that. My ego fed off of that. And then I ended college and I was like, who are my friends?
Yeah.
Like, who actually cares about me? And I remember having this moment of like, and this is kind of dark, but I remember having this moment of like, if I died, like who would be there?
Yeah.
And who would really deeply care and be affected by this? And at the time, like I didn't feel like there were very many people who would be there. And that was, I'm like getting chills as I'm talking about it. Like that was such a dark moment. And especially for someone who I'd spent all this time being so social, but I was getting that like shallow hit of connection. But the depth that I was really capable of and craving wasn't there for many different reasons. I was definitely very scared of real connection because that takes work. That takes vulnerability, that takes opening up, that takes fear of rejection, all of those fun things. And so that was a big kind of turning point for me. But even after that, like I struggled to find my people. And I would just like be in these relationships with people, these friendships that just felt very surface level. And I threw myself into my business, into my work, and I was like, it's fine. have friends to go out with, and that's good enough for now. And then it wasn't until moving to Austin and saying, like, this isn't good enough for me anymore. Like, I need more than this. And I'm willing to open up and let people in now. Even if that means there's going to be crunchiness and hurt feelings. And my fear was always like the drama. It's like the more you get to know someone, the more you see the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until recently that I was really willing to show that part of myself and also to see that in other people. And the last 3 years has been the most rewarding time of my life, specifically because of community and like having the depth of connection that I always craved, and people who are like so there for me. Like, holy shit. I was telling my group of girlfriends the other day, I was like, when everything else in life is like up and down, all around, like, you guys are consistently awesome. And that doesn't mean perfect. And we have a lot of hard conversations intentionally. We'll go around and actually share, is there anything that's left unsaid, that's been left unsaid in our friend group?
So brave. So powerful.
And so then people will actually directly say to you, yes, this thing that happened the other day actually really hurt my feelings. And I just want to let you know how that impacted me. So we go there. It's not all trips and fun and, light and shiny. But that's where the intimacy is created. That's where the depth is created. And really using our community as a personal development tool. That's like my dream.
Yeah.
As everything I ever wanted. I've always loved personal development and sought it out in all these different ways. And now to regularly receive that, not only from my partnership, but also from my larger community, is like, wow. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful.
That's beautiful. And there's nothing like community. I mean, I certainly relate and have, especially the part about, like, where are my friends? Like, I have a lot of people. And people would be sad if I died. But if I had a funeral, like, who would really be affected by that?
Yeah.
Like, missing my presence in their life. And I realized for myself, I definitely, maybe you relate to this being a coach. It was like, I'm the space holder for others. And I have this deep, deep well, it's infinite, that can hold other people's pain. And so that's kind of just like, it is one of my gifts. So it's one of my defaults. It's not as easy to really break down. For me, I protect myself. And with this illusion, this story that it's like, well, I can hold a lot of other people's pain, but my pain's a lot, like I'll be like, I don't want to put that on somebody else, and in doing so, it's like that lie. It's like the thing you can feel between someone in the room. It's like when they're not open, you feel it. So you're not actually giving them a gift. You are effectively choosing separation between the two of you. And it takes an extreme amount of courage to do what you're doing, with your friendships and in your relationships. And we choose it. We choose it.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it's even to be at this level of commitment with people to where you're all in. Like, there's not an out option. Like, if something comes up, you deal with it. You can't just run away. And there's such beauty. It's really a spiritual process, an initiation. Like, when my friend Alexa Martinez, if you're listening to this, Lex, I love you. She's a relationship and sex coach, and she talks a lot about, like, when you take out off the table. And she's talking about it in romantic partnership, which Jared and I are at that place as well. Out is not an option, bar any crazy circumstances. And then with friendships too.
Yeah.
Like, what happens when you're like, I'm so committed to you that you could do something that pisses me off so bad. And we just have to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the beauty that comes from that, because it's family. At that point, it's family, right? Because for most of us, family feels like out is not an option, even if space and boundaries and all of that is super important with family.
Yeah.
But there is this like blood tie of like, even if you are far removed from your family, you still share this blood. Like there is this all-inness inherently. And so what does it look like to actually apply that to community and to partnership?
Right. And actively, like you're saying, like speak it out loud. Like, hey, listen, this is how I feel about this friendship, about this relationship. Like claiming it, so you can't just, erode at your own integrity by just slinking out of something because you got activated in a certain way and tried to project it onto somebody else. You have to speak your truth.
And that was always my protection mechanism. Like something would rock the boat and I would be out.
Right.
Like, I make new friends so easily. I don't need you. I'm out. And that left me in a position with no real friendships.
Why do you think like that was part of your early patterning? Like it's obviously something that you worked very hard to overcome, but why do you think because I heard you before say about the melodrama, like not wanting these big melodramatic things instead of just be like, okay, nope, I'm cutting ties. Where do you think that came from for you?
Well, like with every good pattern, childhood.
Yeah.
My mother, as much of a saint as she is, has a very volatile emotional pattern. And I have done a lot of work around this recently of like really understanding the way that impacted me and still impacts me now. And I just remember feeling like very on edge. Like if you say something that she doesn't agree with, she's so convicted in her beliefs that she might start crying or she'll get like really emotional and really upset. And that I think imprinted for me of like, it's just not worth it. Like, I don't want any of that energy in my space. And I think that on one hand, it's been a gift because I have a very low tolerance for drama in my life. And I'm not someone who attracts drama. Like people say to me like, how do you not have all this drama? I'm like, because I can't deal with it. I can't stand it. That was growing up. I had a lot of it. And then on the other hand, the shadow is the tendency to just run at the first sight of it. And, it's a very fine line with friendships and relationships of like, what is the drama that you do want to deal with? Because some people are not your people. And so and this is something that comes from our friends, Libby and Andrew Drish. They're relationship coaches, and they talk a lot about like only going rock bottom with people who are like your soul family.
Right.
And it's not worth it to go rock bottom with everyone. And so to be actually very intentional and careful and slow to commit and go rock bottom with people. So, and that's like comes down to discernment, like really understanding and doing that personal discovery work around like who's actually your soul family, and then being willing to go rock bottom with them.
And can you talk about how you met Jared, your beloved, and how the two of you collided in this wild universe to create so much magic together?
It's honestly so wild because when we met each other, we were totally different people than we are now. We were young. I think we met, I was probably 23. We've been together 5 years. He was 24. And when we met, I was like in a really lost place. I just had been running this business, which financially was great. And my heart wasn't in it anymore, and didn't feel like I had any friends, and was actually in a toxic relationship at the time, mutually toxic relationship. My life was just kind of a mess. And he was also figuring himself out. And we met I met some of his friends at an oyster roast in Atlanta, and they invited us to come back to their apartment to keep hanging out, drinking, whatever. And Jared, who was roommates with them, was asleep on the couch. And he had like his hoodie up and his hair was all messed up. But I have this thing that happens. It's happened 3 times in my life where I've seen someone and I've known that I was going to date them for a long time. And those have been my 3 serious boyfriends. And it's kind of wild. Like, I just see that. I'll even fight with Source about it. I'll be like, no, I'm not ready for another one of these. Like, I'm not ready. But I saw Jared and it was like, nope, this is it. This is him. And I'm like, okay. And yeah, it's a really long story. We had like 7 months of what we called light and casual, which was not very light or casual, but we traveled the world together with groups. We were like always with groups. And we just like really connected on a deep friendship level. And then I finally agreed to go on a date with him.
Oh, wait. So you were resisting it in the beginning?
Were basically going on dates, but
But they were just trip dates.
I was like, we're just going to Croatia for fun.
Was that part of your like story to yourself of like, I'm not falling for this person at the speed of light. This is fine. This is just like a casual.
Yeah, my story was definitely like, I'm not ready for something serious. He wasn't really either, although when he met me, was very like, this is her, this is it. The first night we met, he told his best friend, I just met the girl I'm gonna marry. Like, very all in right away. Mm-hmm. But he knew, because he's so freaking smart, he knew that if he let on that he was so serious about me, that I would run in the other direction. And so he played the game. He played it so well. Mm-hmm. He just kind of like, he honestly just held space for me. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things that really impressed me about him at 24 years old. Like, he was such a grounded, like, conscious, masculine man. And that was before we even knew anything about consciousness. Mm-hmm. And we were very unconscious. Mm-hmm. And so we would, he was just like, hey, whenever you're ready, like, I know you got some things to work out. Whenever you're ready, like, I'm here.
Wow.
And I was like, that is so mature.
That's so sexy.
It was so mature.
Yeah.
And we had so much fun together. We really aligned on, he was location independent. I was also location independent. So we had a lot of time freedom, and that's why we traveled so much together. And just like, we went to Costa Rica, we went to Croatia, we did Greece Yacht Week together. We went to Miami a couple times. We were everywhere. Mm. And this is all like in one summer. It was wild. Or I guess it was like 6 months. And finally, I just got to the point where I was like, I would be so dumb not to go all in on this guy. Like, he is amazing. Mm. And our connection's amazing. And we are amazing teammates and life partners and just all of it. Mm. And then somehow we grew in the same direction, which I think is so rare. Mm. A lot of times, especially like clients of mine, they'll get really into the personal development work, the spiritual work, and they will just start to naturally grow apart from their partners. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we had a little bit of that happening, but in the end, we got on the same page and have just really been rapidly growing in the same direction. And we really both attribute a lot of our financial success to each other. Mm. Because the relationship that I was in before him took so much mental space and so much processing, and it just really took away from my ability to be present with scaling my business, with kind of going after my dreams and what was important to me. And with Jared's just groundedness and our relationship being so solid, it's allowed me to channel all of that kind of drama energy into the places that really matter. And same for him. And he's gone from, when we first met, he was working as a customer service rep at this online company. And now he is part owner of the entire company.
Wow.
And like leads the entire team.
Wow. I mean, I think that's amazing. That's such a testament to what we're talking about here, what strong relationship and community can do for the individual and all individuals involved. And it's like, we're living in a world where our tribes, our villages, in the Western world here, we don't have things like that, So this is like, go back hundreds of thousands of years and look how we were living, and people call that primitive, but I think there's something that the soul needs through living together, through sharing our human experience and being seen and being willing to be seen.
Absolutely.
So that is, I think that needs to be said. And I have a couple questions about what you said to follow up. One was, you talked about, okay, there was this moment where Jared and I were kind of growing apart, but then in the end, we kind of ended up coming back together. My question was like, ooh, I want to ask a question about that little pocket in between and like how y'all, kind of had that conversation. Like, this is what I see.
Yeah. So a funny moment sticks out to me during that time of, I really wanted to go to, where was it? Peru, Ecuador for 6 months and get my certification. It was like in something with shamanism. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like a mix of like theater and improv and also medicines and all kinds of stuff. And Jared's like, are you going to come back with like your armpit hair grown out and like dreadlocks and just be like a totally different person? And I'm like, maybe.
Yeah. We'll see.
I am discovering myself.
Yes.
But so there was just like a little bit of I went head over heels in love with the spiritual awakening and the personal development piece, and really like surrounding myself with different kinds of people and ideas, and I just went very woo very fast. And Jared was just like, I don't know about all this. Like he never made me feel like judged, but he also wasn't there with me. And I had to ask myself at that point, do I need him to be there with me? Or can we still have a beautiful relationship if he never meets me in this?
Right.
And at that point, I decided that because our values were still so aligned, one of which is curiosity, that I was willing to be okay, even if he wasn't going to be as woo as me. And he's still not as woo as me. And that's actually good. Like, that's great. He's a great balance. And I love his like healthy skepticism for everything. And, but he is so curious that he couldn't help himself, but kind of go to some of these like events that I was going to and listening to some of the podcasts I was listening to. We kind of got into authentic relating, and then especially moving to Austin, there's all kinds of things to explore. And he's extremely open-minded and curious. So he'll try anything and then be like, nope, wasn't for me, or like, yes, I love it. And now you'll see, I mean, he's super into yoga, and I'm like looking around all the incense around our house. It's Jared. Like, he's just the crystals. He's got a crystal dealer. And
yes, we converted him.
Yeah, totally. But he's like,
That's funny.
He's in it, but not totally in it, which is a great balance. But I think for anyone listening who may find themselves in this position, because I talk to so many women who don't feel like met by their partners as they're kind of going through this awakening and this journey. And I think the number one thing that I would look for is, even if your partner doesn't understand, are they still willing to let you go on your journey? Are they still willing to accept you, encourage you, be open-minded, be curious? Because if they're not, that is a red flag for me. But if they're like, this is weird, but I freaking love you and like you do you. Yeah. That's, to me, that's being met. If they're like, this is weird, I don't know why you're doing this. Like, I don't want any part of this. Just completely shutting it down. That's when I would ask some of those deeper questions of like, do your values actually align?
Right. Is this person willing to support me in my growth, regardless of what that actually means for us, you know?
Totally.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Because it's unconscious, but if we see our partner growing in a way that we don't understand, or maybe we don't want to understand, and it's bringing up activations and triggers within us, it's like it's fear. We're like, are they going to change? Are they going to leave me? Is this not going to work anymore? And I think what I'm hearing here in the medicine that's being created in this podcast is like, we're talking about authenticity. And for me, one of the required ingredients in authenticity is vulnerability. And it's like, you hear in your head the thing that you think that you don't want to say, but you know you should say, like
the edgy thing.
Yeah. And also to caveat that, and my partner and I also talk about this, he always says, you can tell someone the truth without punching them in the face with it.
Yes.
And I think it's like, okay, developing this discernment around the tonality of your voice, how something is conveyed. Can you frame whatever you're saying from your experience versus like a judgment on another's character? Or can you base it on an observation rather than a story of who they are because they did that particular thing? Yeah. So challenging ourselves in those ways.
I love this. I just want to share this quickly. I love this kind of phrasing that I picked up from my friend Ariana Joy. She'll always say things. She'll like make a statement and then she'll say, and I'm willing for this to be a story. Or she'll preface what she says by, I'm willing for this to be my own story. Or I'm willing for it to be proved wrong about this. And then kind of state, here's the observation, right?
I love that.
And I think that's such a beautiful, simple tool, especially in partnership and friendship and everything that we've been talking about today, is I'm willing to see my own shit. Like I'm willing to be seeing this through my own clouded lens. And I think being open to that and not to open up an entirely different wormhole.
We can if you want to.
That is really what 2020 taught me. Okay. Is just acknowledging that this is my experience. And I'm willing for this to be a story. I'm willing for this to be my experience. But that doesn't change my truth. But I feel like just having that energy of like, this isn't capital T truth for all people everywhere. This is my truth. And I'm willing to see a different perspective. Right. That is like, if everyone could learn how to do that and have those nuanced conversations as you were speaking to, like delivering your truth without punching someone in the face. Yeah. I think that was paraphrasing what you said. Yeah. Like, how would our world look different if we could all just like own our truth without claiming
that it's the
capital
truth.
T truth?
Yeah. Like your truth is really just technically a preference.
Yeah.
And we have to understand, I have to understand that my preferences come from all of my conditioning and my childhood and where I grew up and how I was raised and how things, air quote, should be. Like, these are programs.
Totally.
They're mental programs that are running. So what happens when we get into conflict is you have a preference and I have a preference, and our preferences don't exactly align. There's a conflict. Okay. Then there's an opportunity to have a vulnerable conversation. But sometimes we don't take that opportunity. We bottle it down, or it just becomes a subtle like resentment. And that's what we call like an elephant in the room. When you're around somebody and you're like, I can't be myself around them. It's probably because you're hiding something that you didn't say or that pissed you off or whatever. And it's a hard truth, but it's like whenever we feel something about somebody else, ask yourself the question, how am I contributing to this dynamic? Is there something left unsaid?
Yeah, and having those tough conversations for the sake of authenticity, for the sake of integrity, that's definitely been like one of the hardest things for me to learn.
What's one of the hardest conversations you've had to have? You don't have to give like the name, but like if you can give a situation where you're like, this one made me sick just thinking about having this particular conversation and how it went down.
Yeah. There was a situation in 2020 where kind of a lot of our friend group that I've been talking about a lot really decided to go deeper with one another. And we had a women's group that we held every week. And it became clear that there was some misalignment in the group. And it like wasn't anything that someone was doing that was like wrong or even like triggering. There was just some like crunchiness, like just some misalignment. And so as a group, we had to have this like tough conversation
about this one person.
Multiple people.
Okay.
And they brought it up. They were like, we're feeling like kind of left out of some of the things that are happening, and they felt the energy. And the truth of the matter was, it was simply that some relationships were progressing quicker than others.
Got it.
Because of quality time spent and this and that. And so it was just kind of like at a certain point, it's like just the relationship wasn't progressing like the other ones were. And, but it was awkward because we're on this like weekly women's group.
Right.
And like, no one wants to hurt anybody's feelings or be like cliquey or exclusive. That was like a huge trigger for me.
Yeah.
Having people feel like unwelcomed or rejected. I like spent my whole life bending over backwards, making sure that everyone felt welcomed and liked by me. And definitely because of, me wanting to be liked and all those deeper wounds associated with that. But so this was like a really big opportunity for me to navigate and the entire group to navigate a challenging conversation around like something's not working, and not trying to sugarcoat it, because especially, I'll speak generally for women, a lot of women, it's like, but we love you. Like, no, everything's fine. You want to like get through it as soon as you can. So there's a lot of sugarcoating that can happen. But I remember being so proud of myself in that conversation because I was like shaking. I was like, I get hives when I get nervous. I get hives all over my neck. And I'm just like, and I felt like the group was kind of going in a direction of like bypassing, like, no, everyth's good. Like, right. And I just remember being like, actually, like, I think there's something just like not aligning. And like, I love you guys, and I think you're amazing people. And there's something that just doesn't feel like it's a fit. Wow. And that was like so hard to say.
Like what was it like watching the faces in the room respond to what you just said, and how was it received?
Well, luckily, everyone in the room has done a lot of work on themselves, and so it could have gone worse. but I know it was hurtful. You know, if I was in that position, you can't not take it personally, you know? And I think ultimately it was something that needed to be said, and the group disbanded after that. And we had like a closing ceremony and just like really thanked everyone for their contribution for that period of time, especially during like 2020 craziness. That felt like such an important group to have. And it was so beautiful and like served its purpose. And it kind of came to the end of that iteration of it. And so it ended really beautifully. And in some of those relationships, I still feel awkward. Like because I still want to be connected to them. But within like kind of the larger community that we were creating, there was just something that there was like a lack of resonance there. That was nobody's fault. And communicating something like that is so hard, because it's not like, oh, well, you did this, and so that's why I'm mad, or that's why this isn't working. It's like, there's nothing you did. It's just something doesn't feel right here.
I think that's the next level. Like, I think that's the next level of growth, is when you can claim that and tell the truth. Because when we claim that, then you open the doorways for the next like radical, more powerful thing for you.
Absolutely.
You basically are saying, okay, not this, almost like this, but it's more like this. It's this other energy. And then you open up the space for it to be there. But if we can't be brave enough to say this isn't a fit, then we stay stuck in that energy, because we're afraid that if we leave that energy, there's not going to be something else. We're going to just lose everything that we have, and we're going to be all alone.
And that people might not like you.
Yeah.
You'll be misunderstood. You will be rejected, or you'll make someone feel a certain way. That was like my big thing. I was like, I just don't want people to feel like there's anything wrong with them or anything like that. And, but again, my friend Libby brought up a good point. It's like, it's actually doing them a disservice by pretending like this isn't present.
Totally.
And the deeper we get into this, the more painful it's going to be to eventually have this conversation, because it's going to come up again.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for her reflection, and her husband have done a lot of work in the authentic relating space. And so they just have a lot of familiarity with kind of these like rock bottom conversations.
Totally.
And, but I just remember being so proud of myself in that moment, because that was such a growth edge, and I was so uncomfortable, and I just wanted to like run away. And, I said my truth, and everything was okay. And everything's better than okay, because it feels like there's not this lack of authenticity in my relationships. And that is something that I've become even more discerning around. Like, I'm very slow now to commit to new relationships, because my priority is really deepening
the ones you already have.
The ones I already have, because that's my pattern is, oh, this gets a little crunchy, I'm going to go get some new friends. And so I really committed to, and it's not like, I mean, I hang out with lots of people and I love making new connections, but in order for me to really authentically move forward in committing to a new relationship, it has to be like a 10 out of 10 connection on both ends.
Yeah.
You know? And because I had so many relationships in the past that were like a 5 out of 10, a 4 out of 10, a 3 out of 10. Like, oh, this is good enough, because I don't want to be alone.
Right.
And I'm just not available for that anymore.
What do you want to say to people who are listening to this, who are experiencing this? And I think it's a natural part of spiritual awakening. I don't care if it's your first awakening, if you've had 20 awakenings, whatever. I feel like it's a symptom of, I don't even like to use the word symptom because of the connotation, but I feel like it's a natural result of growth. And But if this is the first time that this is happening to someone, where they're feeling like they're literally a puzzle piece that doesn't fit with the rest of the puzzle, and they're going, okay, something's wrong with me. I feel like I'm changing. I don't know what to do with all this. What advice would you give to them about how to make it through this bumpy piece and how to call in with inspired action that new community?
Yeah, two things come to mind, and something that really shifted for me is like actually believing that it was possible and not doing this like victimhood thing around it, right? I was really like attached to the story actually at the end of the day of no one really understands me. And I'm kind of like this loner that no one knows is a loner. And yeah, just like getting a lot of that like perceived benefit of separating myself from others.
Right.
And so just believing like, actually my people are out there. They're 100% out there and I will find them. That alone was a big shift for me because for most of my life, I told myself, I will never find them. I will always feel like I don't have 10 out of 10 relationships. And then the empowered action piece is I'm a big fan of like, especially if you're like in the market for new connections and you meet someone at a gathering, at a party, at the grocery store, wherever, and you feel that spark of connection, that true, authentic spark of connection, go after it. Make the first move. Reach out and say, I mean, I'm pretty shameless. Like I'll literally be like, how does next Wednesday at 12 p.m. work for lunch?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll send you a calendar invite.
Dude, I'm the same way.
Like, I don't understand. Well, I do. I know why people don't do that because there's the rejection piece, right? It's like, what if they don't want to, and then they're forced to say no or whatever. But when you really get clarity on like, okay, I don't feel met by the people I'm currently surrounded by, I'm ready to grow and really find my people. It takes some trial and error. And one of my best friends, Lex, she talks about this a lot. When she first moved to Austin, she really put herself out there. She went to like all the events and went on all these friend dates and all of this. And she was getting really discouraged because she was like, because she had never really found her people in the cities that she lived in. And she was like, okay, Austin's kind of like the last chance to see if it's either people or me. And so she really got to this point of like, oh, I guess it's me. And I just will never find my people. And then she met a feisty little redhead named Taylor Liu. She also has a podcast, and we've talked about this on her podcast. But we met at a women's circle, and we got a glass of wine together one night, and it was just like fireworks. Like, oh wow, this is it. And then from there, it was like our whole kind of friend group was created with a lot of like synchronicity that I won't go into, but it was just like all these all-in couples, and there's like 14 of us, 7 couples, 14 people. And so for those of you who are feeling like you're in that space of like, well, I'm trying, I'm putting myself out there, I'm going on friend dates, I'm going to the events, I would say really reframing and really understanding what is the belief that you're holding around this, first and foremost. And then second of all, like being patient. Like it may take a minute. It may take some trial and error, but not settling. So I think that was my pattern of like, I was always just kind of settling in those relationships, and I wasn't showing up as myself. So of course I wasn't attracting the people that I really wanted to attract. So, and sometimes those can be hard questions of like, am I showing up authentically?
Yeah.
Because that makes a big difference. So finding your people who are actually your people because they are attracted to you and your authentic self. And like for the first time in my friendships, the past 3 years, I felt so seen, like really deeply seen, both for like all of my imperfections and crunchiness and quote unquote flaws. Like I feel so seen in all of that, and it can be very confronting. And I also feel so seen in all of my gifts and my unique magic and what I bring to the table. And this community is constantly reflecting that back to me and holding space for the places where I'm working on myself and I'm doing the work. And it's just a big mirror. It's amazing.
It is a big mirror, and you can feel so seen because you're seeing yourself. Like you're willing to see what might be your contributions, and that goes back to what you said about like, I had a story. I had a story around being the loner and like kind of the specialness, like that gave you a sense of specialness because nobody understands me. And I know that story, and I'm like joking about it because I had that too. And it was like, I'm always going to be alone. And, it's just not true. But until we're willing to really look at, okay, what are the stories that I have? And what is the inevitable benefit I'm getting from this? Even if it's like a not so nice story, it's like understanding that behavioral patterning is like, we don't keep habits that are in some way not serving us. Like if it didn't serve you, and I'm not saying on a healthy level, like it could be a codependent level, but we don't keep behaviors that are not kind of a protection mechanism in some way or helpful. And so just be willing to like put all your feelings aside and really go into that space that you did and be like, all right, is this real? Is this true? Am I having a pity party for myself? Okay, maybe I am. Can I have compassion for that?
Yeah.
And like going through those layers gently, one by one.
And kind of seeing it from that objective lens too. And I would say that's kind of like a superpower that has served me both in business and in my personal life, is kind of going into that detective role of like, where is the disconnect? Like, what am I missing that's going to allow me to find more aligned friendships or to make my business really start working in a new way and make me feel more fulfilled and more profitable? It's like not making it so personal and really seeing it as like a puzzle or like you're looking for clues. And that's not an approach that will necessarily resonate with everyone, but that has really helped me. A lot of people will talk about, just like seeing yourself with compassion and really just when you're feeling insecure, pouring love into your inner child and just like allowing your inner child to have that moment. And I think that's an amazing tool. And what's always resonated with me more is this idea of like being the detective and the mad scientist and kind of just like taking all the like deep personal heaviness out of it. And not in a way where you're bypassing the emotions around it, like still feeling your emotions and still being and swamping it out or whatever you do to just be in your emotions. And then once that kind of passes and you're ready to really look for a solution, it's like having that objectivity has always really helped me. And in business, like if you can learn not to take business so seriously and so personally, your business is going to work better and better and better and better, because being in that detective role, you're going to be able to see a lot more when you get that bird's eye picture objectively than being so in it and like, why don't people like me enough to buy my thing? It's like, well, actually it's just your messaging is off and people aren't connecting with it or you haven't been getting visible enough. Like what's actually happening? So it's the last thing I'll say on that.
Wow. That's so cool. I love that concept of just kind of being a detective of our own life and taking that curiosity and playfulness into everything that we do. So, you have an interaction, something feels strange, instead of beating yourself up and being like, oh, I did that thing again that I did it, or this person, this, it's like, oh, interesting. I'm feeling a quick heart rate. Oh, interesting. I'm feeling a little drained after that interaction and not filled okay. And it's just like pragmatically taking note of these things instead of spiraling ourselves deeper into the emotionality cyclone that could become.
Yeah. And to me, and something I'm really passionate about is integrated leadership, like really integrating the masculine and feminine. And I think about the masculine and feminine dynamic in almost every context in my life. And that's a good example of even like personal growth. How do we bring in the feminine of like really being in the expression of the pain, the hurt, the confusion, feeling the emotion, being connected to that, and then bringing in the masculine to say, well, interesting. Why do I feel this way? And tracking it and breaking it down and helping you to understand what's happening and find a solution. Like that, I'm so passionate about really using both energies to serve you in your life, because I see a lot of people from the outside looking in who get really unbalanced in the feminine, where it's like they're constantly processing and they're constantly like in the clouds almost like, and these people tend to be extremely creative and like have all these ideas and they're really fun to be around and they've got great energy, but then it's like none of that is being brought to fruition and put into form and structure. And so they're just kind of caught in this loop of most of the time feeling like they're not making enough money to really feel safe and feel secure. And just they're constantly like looking for what else to fix. What else do I need to fix? And then I'll be ready to make money and whatever it is, have the business. And then a lot of people who are very unbalanced in the masculine, where it's just all about working, hustling, structure, logic, bypassing the emotion oftentimes. And of course, I'm speaking in generalities here, but I'm so fascinated by how do we bring these two things together in every single thing, in every single context. Like just seeing the world through that lens, because the partnership, right? It's the sacred union, the sacred partnership, and then the energies, the duality of energies that's present. And it's like a universal law. Like these are our dualities that we see. It's a massive duality. And so I love playing with it. And it's very impactful for my life to just see it through that lens.
This is excellent. I wholeheartedly live my life this way as well. And I'm really fascinated by what you said about business in particular. And we'll bring this to a close soon. But so feminine energy in business, and like we'll say just like being on the heavy end of the feminine energy on the spectrum and this kind of stagnancy. And how would you suggest, obviously it's multi-layered. This is what you do as a coach. It's very nuanced and it changes from individual to individual. But if someone was listening to this, really identifying with whether you're male or female, let's say that too, biologically, whatever your sex is, we're just talking about energies here. And we can, we do have both and we're always, balancing them out. But if someone was feeling like how you described with the heavy feminine energy, what would be one practical thing that they could do to help themselves right away to start shifting back into balance?
Two kind of key takeaways here. One is really understanding the resistance to the masculine. I think women have resistance to the masculine for many reasons, because of wounds that they've had throughout their life, from collective wounds that we all have. And what have you made masculine mean? And what is kind of the masculine archetype that you're resisting?
Right.
I think getting clarity on that is huge. And then the other thing that I recommend often to people is coming up with a more masculine archetype that they can play with. So an example would be like the huntress or the warrior, or even like warrior queen, if you wanted to really have fun with it. And really think about like, what is the version of me as the huntress? that has this kind of penetrative energy of like, I'm going out and I'm hunting my prey, and I am taking it down and, completing that kind of action.
Right.
Right? Like, what is the version of me who is in that energy? And then as that archetype, like, what would I do in my life right now if I was the warrior queen?
I love that. And how about balancing out our masculine energy? Because I mean, even as a female entrepreneur, I've often been in the heavy masculine, where it's hard to drag myself out of those milestones and to go back to creation and to go back to being intuitive and really trusting my heart with some of the business decisions. So if somebody is all up in their own metrics and just like very concerned about hitting certain numbers and everything feels very tight and constricting and do, how do we bring ourselves back home from that?
So this is definitely the one that I struggle with the most. I'll get caught much more likely in my masculine than in my feminine, feeling unbalanced. And what's always helped me and I've seen be beneficial for people is like, even though it feels counterintuitive, when you feel at the height of that stress and that like need to perform, that need to like achieve, to make space for white space, for stillness, for creativity. I recently went through like a new layer of this, and I had this realization of like, I'm pouring all of my creativity into my business right now. And I need more creative outlets for expression outside of my business. And so having that realization, then I use my masculine energy to take action and say, okay, if this is a need that's feeling like it needs to be filled, what do I need to do? And I bought a live looping machine.
Nice.
And a flower press.
Nice.
And I've been making space on my calendar to just like get lost in playing music, drinking a glass of wine, and making pressed flower art. And I just got my live looping machine, so I'm going to start playing with that and just like being fully in the feminine, like unstructured creation where there's no real like intention behind it or like end goal. It's just playing and having fun and being in that. And even taking yourself on a solo getaway and just really like showering yourself in presence and self-care and taking yourself on a date. And I love setting up like whole spiritual ceremonies for myself. Like that is so nourishing for me. And actually taking the time to do that for yourself is a great way to connect back to your feminine, which I think in many ways holds the deepest, most potent truth. And connecting to your feminine can really help you access what is actually important.
Word. Nothing to add to that other than yes. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you for your wisdom and your presence. And I want to ask you as we come to a close, one, is there anything else on your heart that is coming through for you right now that just really wants to be shared? And then two, if you would tell us a little bit more about your It Factor offering and where people can find you on Instagram, your website, and all of the above.
Yeah, I would say what's on my heart right now, just kind of in regards to authenticity, which I feel like is the big theme that came out in our discussion today, is not feeling, just encouraging listeners not to feel like authenticity is a destination. Like they're going to get to some place where they're like, I am just completely me so at all times. Yeah, right? Because then that's probably not authentic.
Right, exactly.
But really to just ground in this like voracious hunger for deeper understanding of self.
Yes.
Like how can you really just become obsessed with knowing yourself?
Yeah.
And then using that awareness to impact and benefit everyone around you, because the more you know yourself, the more your relationships are going to improve, the more your business is going to grow. Like everything around you shifts when you make the deep understanding of self a priority. And so that kind of segues into the It Factor method, which is a mini course that I created to really help people to break down systematically the understanding of their authenticity. And so if you're curious about that, it's $97. And I definitely want to offer your listeners a discount.
We'll set up a coupon or something.
Yeah, we'll set up a coupon.
We'll probably make it THOUGHTROOM, because that's what we make all of ours.
Sweet.
So we'll also put it in the show notes for people to grab that.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's just, I think it's honestly great for everyone. It's definitely geared more towards business owners, especially business owners using personal brands to grow their business. And I think it's beneficial for absolutely everyone to understand your it factor. Like, what is it that really makes you stand out, and what is it that you're really here to do and take a stand for and just embody? And how do we amplify those things that are just already so natural and inherent for us? How do we just be more of ourselves to create more of what we want in our lives?
Totally.
And it gets to be that easy. It gets to be that easy and takes a lot of intentional effort.
Well, yeah, I really just want to encourage anyone listening who's like feeling the resonance with you and this episode today to go explore that, because you're such a high level coach, and the opportunity to have one of your offerings, and I think that's a very, very fair price, especially with the coupon. So give us the website one more time.
Yeah, I'll send you the link. And
do you know it offhand? Is it on your website?
It is on the website. Right now it's under Kajabi, so it's kind of like a big, ugly link.
Okay, so what's your homepage, though?
Taylor Lou Coaching.
Taylor Lou Coaching.
That's my website. And then I'm always hanging out. Yes, .com. And I'm always hanging out on Instagram. So,
and your Instagram handle
Taylor Lou Coaching.
Perfect.
Yeah,
easy.
pretty much everything's Taylor Lou Coaching. If you want to Google me, lots will come up. And I love just connecting with people in the DM. And if you're listening to this episode and you feel inspired to reach out and share with me something that impacted you in a way, small or big, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to meet you.
Share with us for sure.
Yeah.
And check out taylorloucoaching.com. And we'll get this all in the show notes, but the code is going to be THOUGHTROOM, and it's going to be 30% off of the It Factor method.
Yeah.
Taylor, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. You are a light. And I want to go check out your looping machine after this.
You can figure it out with me.
Yeah, man.
Yes, I am. Right at the beginning. Thanks for having me. This is amazing. This is so fun. I feel like we covered pretty much everything. So we've solved all of life's big problems now.
Next problem, please.
Yep, we're good, actually. We can just set up shop and put it away.
Thank you.
Thank you.